Hey everybody, Agent of Doubt here, and it's been a long time since I've made a long ramble just talking about my life and my feelings. So, if you're not here for that, if you're not one of those long-time subscribers that has been here for the past decade, you might not be interested, but here goes. It's always good to check in. It's the first time I've done this, I guess, all summer, um, where I just sit down and I have an entire, couple hours that I could talk, and we'll just see where it ends. Classic AOD move, right? This is one of those videos. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is last night I posted the video about the skeptic feminist trial being over, and the sentencing happened yesterday. And I gave the facts, did not give my feelings, right? So, like I've done before, I'm separating the feelings out into this video. Myself and Brian J 1962 are both leaning towards the he got a little bit too much justice. I'm actually probably of the feeling of there should have been a lot more leniency. There is no label for the crime that happened that really fits it, that really does it justice. I mean, he pled guilty to assault with a deadly weapon and reckless manslaughter, right? That just does not give the entire thing justice. But I think what happened was they had a number of years in their mind that they wanted to give him as punishment. Key word there, punishment. But that they were looking for a label that he would agree to plea to, and the the label was important to Alexander throughout this whole thing. He did not want to plead guilty to murder. I just heard the train whistle. That's another classic. I hope you guys can hear it. It's another classic thing that has come across my rambles. Anyways, yeah, I feel like part of this the reason why it's taken 2.5 years to come to a conclusion was the moral stance that Alexander took, that he was not going to insult his relationship to Heather by admitting to any sort of label of murder. And so the prosecutors finally came up with a way to get their pound of flesh and just call it something else. You know, a murder charge could have carried the same amount of years as what he ended up getting. You know, but he gets to live the rest of his life knowing that he didn't have that label put on him. Um, Small win, considering all that went on, but you know that was what was most important to him in this. I mean, she's gone; can't bring her back. Uh, my feelings on this, having gone to all of the deposition portion of the trial, um, my feelings on this were that the neighbor's testimony, the testimony of Mr. Anthony Martinez, who had no stake in this. He wasn't dating Alexander. He had no previous relationship to him. He was just the guy's neighbor. Um, when Alexander went over to his house 4 hours before uh, the crime was committed, Alexander was out of his mind. He was naked in a house he'd never been in before. He went around the apartment complex to that guy's apartment. Went inside of it, was on the stairwell, naked, in somebody's home that he'd never been in before. And key to this is he was mumbling that he was poisoned at that point, 4 hours before what happened. And that idea was not something concocted, after the fact. And that to me was the most compelling reason why I think that the prosecutors were getting it totally wrong. But the prosecutors actually, you know, they had sitting behind them the whole time Heather's parents. At every hearing I went to, they were there. Um, Her mother's red hair is unmistakable. You know, uh, when you see a family member of hers, you know it's her family. And prosecutors work for the community that they're in, as well as uh, the idea of justice, and what actually happened. Their hand can be pushed by very concerned uh, people who were related to a victim. So they kept pushing. They were justice in this case for the community. They're looking at, well, who's showing up and what do they want? What do they want us people who serve the public to try to achieve? And so I know that they were incredibly biased. That's their Heather. They loved her, and so they were pushing for. They wanted murder one, and that was the first thing that he was charged with. Then he was charged with murder two. Then he was charged with other stuff, and finally got all the way down to what he got. Um, I don't know that the actual sentence was something that he was counting on when he accepted the plea deal. The judge might have gone, towards the harsher end of what he could have sentenced him with rather than the lower end that he might have been hoping for. The plea deal might have been just, between the prosecutor and the defense, and then, well, there's a possibility that you could get less. But personally, I feel like it is too harsh. That's my personal opinion. Um, I would have been okay with anything in the 6 to 12 year range, and part of that being time served. And I know that that's something that of a prospect that was horrifying other people, with this. But my perspective has been forged as somebody who has worked with the offender community, um, especially when I worked for the STIRT program at Arapahoe House, where the only way you could get a referral to that rehabilitation program was to be on probation or parole. And I learned a lot from them as far as how effective probation and parole are, or just punishment in general of people. Um, there are different schools of thought as far as what should be done to criminals? Do they need rehabilitation or punishment? Or a mix of both. And I side very heavily on the rehabilitation side because I want what's best for the community and the person, and I see punishment as something that just doesn't benefit anyone. You know, um, not much as a deterrent, not much as justice or vengeance or anything. You know, um, I would rather see a good portion of the people that are in the criminal justice system be sentenced to therapy to rehabilitate them from being criminals who might be stuck in a cycle of recidivism and relapse. So that's my perspective going into this. I've worked with so many felons trying to get their lives together. And I have so many referrals I can give someone in the Denver area for felon friendly jobs. It's weird. I might as well just be a felon friendly job Grand Central Station referral machine. You know, I can tell people how to find a felon friendly job that pays better than my job. Walk on. And that hurts. That stings. I'm like, oh my God, I went to college and I'm not a felon and I am licensed by the state and I'm teaching people with felonies to fucking get a job that pays better than mine. Ow! Anyways, that being said, um, just being a counselor in general, you want people to live their best life that they can. You want to see everybody living the best life that they can. And this sets in slowly, or at least it did for me. This concept, but it is crept over a lot of my thought processes of how I see the world. You know, as a non-believer, I find it very strange that I live in a very Christian centric country and community, and I take the ideas of forgiveness and redemption a lot more to heart than most people that I'm surrounded by. And I'm the one who's usually the token non believer in the room. So, um, yeah, those are my thoughts on this. I actually I hope that halfway through his sentence, Alexander gets his uh, parole hearing, and he might actually be eligible for it if he can have good days all the way up to it, be credited with that, and even be on some track where his good days shorten the end of his sentence to the point where the halfway point is actually like the third way point in the sentence, to where it brings the entire experience down to the level that I would have wanted for him. But who knows what's going to happen. you know will he choose to try to be a model prisoner, or will he end up having something else happen? I don't know. I hope the best. And for those who think that is like too short, on the too short side, I'll say that chances are, in my estimation, maybe not. As far as what's likely to happen, because just like the trial went, and the DA's hands were kind of being backed by Heather's family, who were there every single time. Um, it could be that every review at the parole hearings, will be attended by Heather's family, and they can also be swayed by the attendance of concerned community members. And so what happens with him could go any different direction, but prison is not the end of a sentence for a felony like this. There's also parole, which a lot of people don't understand that parole is like probation that is on the tail end of a jail sentence or a prison sentence. And if you mess up within that time, you can be remanded back to prison for the rest of your sentence, right? So if somebody gets put on parole on a 28-year sentence, and that parole starts in, say, 8 years, that's 20 years of parole that I think is really excessive, because I guess in my mind, I would like to see him come up with a plan for what he's going to do with the rest of his life, and then hit the ground running when he gets out of prison, whenever that is, and sail off into the sunset to maybe some foreign country where his girlfriend is, and just create a new life, maybe a new identity, and just not live like the felons that I deal with that are trapped in homelessness and substance use. You know, I don't want to see that for him. I don't want to see that for anyone. And I know how hard it is to live with the stigma of having a felony on your record. It is not easy in America at all. The felony tag that people carry when they're trying to lift themselves up out of poverty is a life sentence to being a felon. And in some ways, it approaches cruel and unusual punishment, because it's punishment that goes far beyond uh, the sentence that they're given. There is no forgiveness and redemption. It is, we will never forgive, we will never forget style justice. Um, and with him, it's going to be even worse. I mean, the internet never forgets, right? I'm saying he's going to need a name change if he's going to, live a new life, or maybe not. Maybe he can prove to the internets that he has a good plan for doing something good with his life. But whatever it is, I don't want it to be painful beyond what it has to be. I don't want it to follow him the way that I see felonies following a lot of people. You know, there's good in everyone, and I just want to see the good side expressed. Recently, in different news, I was covering the Shanny trial, and it was a case of, I think, the justice system recognizing that some things are mental health or medical problems and don't need justice system intervention. And I'm all for that. If you can take someone out of having that label of a crime being committed, and put them into, well, you need therapy. you need this other program that's going to help you rebuild some part of your life. You maybe need some health care, you know, because we don't want to, saddle your life with a criminal record, and we'd rather see you just be a productive member of the community, or at least just, you know, a healthy member of the community. I'd love to see that when, say, for example, when someone's drunk in public and could be charged with it, and they're stumbling around, and a policeman pulls up and says, get in the back of the car, and then rather than taking them to the drunk tank or jail, they drop them off at an emergency room or a detox, and they use their discretion, and that's like the official term for it. It's police discretion, right? They call it a medical problem rather than a criminal one. They do less paperwork, and the person gets to live their life without a criminal record for it, and they might actually be connected to care through that experience. Some counselor like myself who deals in crisis situations might have the right answer to what is ailing them and get them set on the right path, instead of compounding problems. And I feel like both of these different cases that I was following really illustrate my feelings as far as we don't need to be compounding problems by exacting vengeance and then calling it justice. Lots of people hated Russian Deadpool's views and attitude online, right? Lots of people hate watch Shani and her man Rev, right? And so they want for, you know, Schadenfreude experiences of them being able to watch them have hard times. And I don't know. Maybe I wish that the public at large would have more introspective moments and think about what they actually are wanting people to experience, you know, and how hard that hardship is and how it just makes things worse and brings about cycles of more mental illness and more hatred just being spewed online. I wish people were more interested in coming to an understanding with someone than seeing the people that they don't agree with being met with harsh consequences that may even be unrelated to the things that they were arguing about online. But I'm especially not happy with the reach out and touch someone attitude that has really infected a lot of the bowels of the internet, especially the YouTube comment section. And, you know, I guess you guys get to see a little bit of like what really goes on in my head. What's turning inside these gears when I express these feelings, you know? And I'm pretty sure that over the 10 years that I've had this YouTube channel, you guys have seen a slow but steady progression of this idea. You know, I was not a saint during the Ponage Olympics of, you know, years and years ago. You know, I was caught up in the bloodlust of that myself. And if the internet blood sports had happened a decade ago, like the Hate Club did, then I might have been a part of that too. You know, I think that's kind of why the SJW versus anti SJW thing was passing me by. I only halfway interacted with it because half of me was really seeing how I want to see the world advance versus how it is staying the same. You know, um, none of these antics online, these mob inspired thoughts where people, they follow the scent of blood like churning sharks. You know, none of this is new. I'm sure that hundreds of years ago, when people were being publicly stoned and publicly hanged and burned at the stake, you had the same kind of people, which are people in general. Like, just, we're people, but there are things that you can pick up along the way, that you can learn in life, that makes you not want to be that kind of person anymore. I call it the evolution of thought, and rather than just looking down at those that are still wanting to burn witches at the stake, I kind of want to educate them, because the only way to get them to quit doing that is to help them learn and help them grow. Doesn't work to shame them, because they'll just keep on shaming. You're not teaching them new tools by shaming them for shaming people. you know, they're already the shamers. Anyways, I did think that I would be able to get into a bit of how my summer has had some really big depressing moments for me. And I made light of it when I broke my leg, and I made a couple videos both on YouTube and TikTok about it, and it's come up a bit. But yeah, just being injured in general, physical injury can bring about some sad thoughts. You want to be able to get up and about, especially in the summertime. It's never a good time to break your leg, but during the season where you're most likely to lose weight and feel good about yourself, and go out and exercise in the warmth of the year rather than the cold, fucking painful, biting, freezing blizzards of Colorado. It's it's not been nice to me this summer. It burned the rest of my PTO from work to go on short term disability, because I had some benefits that are strange, and I only had enough time, to do a couple more things that I wasn't able to do, such as I wasn't able to go to that last sentencing hearing for the Skeptic Feminist trial, because as part of the FMLA process, you got to burn 1 week of PTO. And some of you out there know this. I just learned it because I've generally been in better health than needing to use that much PTO or sick time or FMLA. I had actually like 2 years of perfect attendance that I kind of broke my streak last Christmas. It was the flu that had knocked me out for a couple of days. I was in the VA hospital overnight with that flu. That was a horrible flu. I was delusional. But yeah, um, then this broken leg. This has actually been like the sickest year I've ever had. And on top of it, after about 6 weeks of my right leg healing, my left leg had a flare up of gout, and that's embarrassing because I'm not that old, but I'm overweight, and 3 years ago I had a flare up of gout for the first time in my life that I recognized because of the classic spot where it was on my foot. And I went to the VA hospital and they stuck a needle right into the joint of my big toe, which there is nothing that can prepare you for that pain. Nothing. It is like someone put a dentist drill inside of my toe and turned it on. Zzz. Okay. TMI, I don't know, but I'm just getting the point across. So, um, each year in the summer, around the same time, I've had a slight flare up, but I haven't gone back to the hospital with it because I know how to treat it on my own. And for the last 3 years, I have had a diet almost completely free of beef and lamb and goat, and basically eat a lot of chicken. A lot of chicken. And it's helped a lot as far as keeping this uh, down with just regular diet. But uh, I'm suspecting that when the weather gets warmer and I'm losing more weight, uh, in the cycle of the year, uh, the breakdown of fat is just as bad as me eating a cheeseburger. Which, by the way, is a heaven that I have not had in at least 2 years now because I am afraid of a gout flare up. I live in fear of them, and I do not want to eat beef at all. But I've had a couple of Impossible Whoppers this summer, and I don't even know if they're good for me because that happened right before I had this gout flare up in my left foot. So I had my right ankle, my leg inside the ankle broken, and on my left foot I had gout. Really, really fucking painful experience, both ways. And uh, just trying to keep my balance and not hurt myself. I've overextended like different parts of my body, my knees and shit, just compensating for pain, and it's been rough. But for the last 3 days, I have been doing pretty good. The gout flare up's pretty much gone away. I feel really embarrassed about this, but I bought a foot spa. Right, it was like $40 at Walmart, and I have gotten uh, my money's worth out of the foot spa with Epsom salt and the foot spa. I found a an almost cure for my gout symptoms, and I've been able to go back to work and make it through my shifts at work. Yeah, it's embarrassing because I'm young and I'm getting back on the weight loss track, and now I feel like I'm behind the power curve because I wasn't that active when I had a broken leg, you know, and wasted months of the warm season where I would generally be losing weight, before the Thanksgiving, Christmas, you know, celebration and not going outside because it's cold season. So I might have to skip some Thanksgiving leftovers to make up for all this. Anyways, that's not been the only thing that's vexing me lately, and I don't know if it's coming across in my YouTube videos because I like to put forth what I think is interesting, not necessarily uh, what my feelings of the day are. You know, this channel is about what I think is interesting and what I want to talk about with you hundred or so people that watch my stuff daily, not the people who are showing up for those views that I have that have the videos that I have that have hundreds of thousands of views on them. Um, those are not the people I like talking to. I like to talk to my regulars, you, the hundred or less people that I see commenting all the time, even the trolls. Um, but yeah, I've had some really really depressing things happen, and what's hard is there are a few different ways that I don't feel at liberty to talk about what goes on in the rest of my life. One of which is confidentiality, right? But it's not just the confidentiality that I have for clients, it's the confidentiality that I have for coworkers as well, because work for any firm, right? And you sign an agreement saying that you won't talk about your coworkers either, not just your clients. And it's like the majority of my life is now off limits to me talking to YouTube, which for a good portion of the last decade was a really good outlet for me. But now I am very bottled up and have very few people to talk to. I've got other coworkers that I can talk to about things. I've got Misty, um, who just finished her master's degree, by the way. Um, Send her some love on that. And I have a few friends that I've kept from some of the activism that I was involved in the past, but I don't really connect with them a lot in my life. I'm really fucking busy sometimes, and my online friends I probably talk to a lot more than my real life friends, and that's come back to bite me a little bit recently. You know, there's some support that I just have not been getting in life, and I've had to recognize that acutely recently. Um, but the biggest, I think, thing that happened to me to start this uh, series of unfortunate events in my summer was a spurt of deaths in the recovery community. And again, I can't talk about them uh, due to all sorts of different confidentialities, but uh, each of those little vacations that I took this summer, like the ones that I set up to go to the Skeptic Feminist trial, and the one that I took to go to my intensives for grad school. Um, every vacation that I've taken, I have been contacted by somebody to let me know that somebody has passed away, and I've come to associate my vacations with just thinking about people dying, and that's not fair. You don't want to live your life thinking that your vacations are a bad thing. Self care is not just a river in Egypt. That's denial. Anyways, um, I that was part of my thinking in that I just got back to work after my broken leg, and you know my work needs me because this is a life or death thing that I do for a lot of people, and I've felt like while I'm gone, people are dying, you know, and so uh, I could have been a bad employee and called in sick and drove across the state to go see that sentencing hearing. I had no PTO to do it, but I maybe could have called in sick. Um, but I didn't because there's been a lot of death, a lot. I can't tell you, you know, but it's a predictable outcome in the profession that I have chosen, and it just happened a lot this summer. And I don't know that it doesn't happen a lot every summer because I was saving up my paid time off for a little while. I hadn't taken many vacations, and it could be that while I'm working, when I hear horrible shit, it's like a matter of course, and I just take it in stride. And then when it happens during my vacation time, that's when I have time to have feelings about it. It could be that I'm reacting to bad news that happens during my vacations that is the same frequency as when I'm working. I don't know, really, but it definitely feels like bad shit happens when I'm gone. And I'd rather be there than not. And I'm feeling that a lot right now. One thing that I will talk about, which it's I have to go into a gray area of like that confidentiality that I should be giving my coworkers. I'm not contractually obligated at this point for this one, but there's ethics that like beyond laws, beyond contracts that you sign with employers. There's just what is right or wrong with ethics that you have to navigate. And sometimes you have to be a little wrong one way to avoid being a lot wrong the other way. And this is one of those things. So I had a coworker named Noel while I worked at the STIRT program at a Ramble house a couple years ago. And Noel was better than me in everything. Like putting in notes that were informative in a quicker time than I did, running groups that were engaging. I'm really good at it now, but I was learning back then. He was better liked by all of the staff and all of the clients, really. Um, he was better in shape than I am. He was a better role model for what it meant to be in shape and eating healthy and exercising and living clean and planning for the future. I mean, Noel was, compared to me, Superman. Right? He was a member of the recovery community. He had 5 years before that. He had a meth charge and a DUI, and he had been clean for a number of years. Got a job as an addiction tech, and he actually impacted my life greatly with the competition that we both had for the same position in the day as far as the scheduling of our job. We had the same positions, but he got the better schedule, right? He was the day shift, like 7 to 3 guy, and I was for a long time the grave shift at that job, and then I moved to like second shift when I needed to gain clinical hours running groups. But that was something where I was only moved because I had that need. They really actually needed somebody to work graves because it's so hard to get somebody to work graves. But Noel got the right credentials to run groups like 1 month before I did, and he took the schedule that I wanted, and it kept me on either grave shift or second shift for the rest of my time in the STIRT program. So there was no way for me to be bitter about it because he actually was measurably better at everything that I was doing. Right? So I couldn't complain and say, "Oh man, but he sucks," you know. And I liked the guy, so it was like, when I left the STIRT program because I got the credentials to go do better things and get paid better, I knew that that time that I spent on the wrong shifts and all that, part of that was somebody else could have that position in that company that I was squatting in, because when people are trying to rehabilitate their lives with a felony, there aren't a lot of places that'll hire them, you know. And I felt good that Noel was able to find that job, you know, because he was doing good in the community and giving back to the recovery community that helped him out. And over the summer, Noel had a relapse. Now, Arapahoe House, if you guys are part of my 100 or so people that follow all my videos, Arapahoe House went out of business like 2 years ago, right? Noel was left without a job for a while, but he had just earned his CAC 2, right? I'm a CAC 3, by the way. But he had just earned his CAC 2 because the certification people, they basically, for anyone who has a criminal history, they slow down the process on them, and they make them do so many more hoops to jump through than I had to as somebody with a squeaky clean record. So, I saw what Noel had to go through while I was working at Arapahoe House with him. He had to go through, like, I believe it was 42 UAs in a year, which was basically almost every week. And that requirement that was put on him, that was out of his pocket. Now, the fact that we worked for Arapaho House, the nonprofit, he was able to get a special rate going through their detoxes, um, as far as paying for his UAs. So it was really great that he got that job. He also had to do therapy, which Arapaho House in house had its employee assistance program, which helped him get his therapy sessions in. So he found a job that had great benefits for what he needed to get to where he wanted to go. But in the time that it took him to go from just a registered psychotherapist to CAC 1 to CAC 2, just from registered psychotherapist to CAC 1, I went from RP to CAC 1 to CAC 2, and I was working on my 3. They slowed his ass down so much. I had been gone from Arapaho House for like a year by the time he finally was being considered for his CAC 2. And when he got his CAC 2, he moved to a place called Harmony in Estes Park, right? And he was like the lead addiction tech there. And I feel great about that, knowing like how well he was working out in the STIRT program. I mean, he was Superman, you know, and he luckily found a job outside of Arapaho House when it folded that would take him in and recognize him for his strength, you know. And he was there for almost 2 years, I think, and everything was working out great. But then he relapsed. I don't know much about that because I only saw what was on his social media. You know, um, I don't know what led to the relapse, but I do know that he was facing a lot. Like I said before with the skeptic feminist stuff, when you get out of a sentence to jail or prison, you're going to have a probation or parole time that is very long, a long tail, right? Noel was still on that when he relapsed. So he was going to have a drug test probably that was going to, show that he popped hot for a drug, and then he'd be, you know, in trouble with his PO. He lost his job. He lost his place, missed some social engagements that were very important to other people in the community that I can't talk about, but it was obvious what was going on, you know? I'll just leave it there. And so he finally started reaching out for help in the community, in the recovery community. And then we found out that he committed suicide. He hung himself. And this has really informed my perspective on how we treat people when they're trying to rehabilitate their lives. Um, and it's also, for me, another illustration of how the 12-step concept of coins that you earn. He just had his 5 year sober coin, you know, his chip, you know, um, and he was going to have to start all over. And just that concept of not allowing for speed bumps in life, and the idea that if you do relapse, you've lost everything that you worked for. That can really, really go wrong. And Noel's death is a testament to that. You know, but also just seeing how much more he had to work hard to get things that I got because he had that felony record. You know, he had to do all of those UAs, you know, and some of it out of pocket, even though it was, he found programs to help him out with that cost. All of that therapy, all of the same things that I had to go through as far as all of the classes that cost hundreds of dollars, the clinical hours that he had to get signed off with supervision, you know, all of that stuff that I did, plus, you know, 5 times as much that was put in his way. Plus, he couldn't find a job anywhere that was felon friendly that wouldn't pay less than what, or sorry, more than what Amazon is paying for its its factory workers now in our area. You know, at that time that I was at a Arapahoe house, I was making $13.50 an hour. He was making something around the same. You know, it's not enough to live on in Denver, and he had extra costs mandated to him if he was going to progress in his career. More costs than I was incurring, you know, and take the fact that you got your student loan debt, which the people watching this internationally are going to roll their fucking eyes at, but it's a real reality in America, and like there are jobs where you get an education to do a public service that other people are unwilling to do, and you get paid less to do it than things that nobody needs more of. We need more teachers, we need more counselors, we need a lot of professions that could help people, and yet you take on student loan debt in order to get the education to have that job, and you put in all the clinical hours to get certified for that job that it might require. Like teachers have a certification program where you have to do student teaching and be followed. Counselors like me have to get the clinical hours signed off. You go through this whole process that's expensive to better yourself to be able to do this job, and then you get paid less than the average Uber driver. It's not good the way that we have our economy set up as far as what we end up with. But anyways, all of that Noel had to go through to fix his life after he had his drug charge and his DUI, all that he went through over years, one relapse, and it all was falling apart, and just looking at how to recover from all of that when you've already gone through it for 5 years, and then you see that 5 years of hard work is just flushed down the toilet. I mean, he was going to be suspended with his certifications, so it'd be harder to work. He'd have to have more supervision if he was going to work. If they would let him do it at all, they might suspend him for a little while before letting him back into the field. Maybe remanded to prison for the rest of his sentence. Just having to save up for a car again, having to save up for a down payment on an apartment again, having to go through halfway homes where there's the politics of that for a while, where you run into all sorts of social circumstances that can put a lot of stress on you. All of that, rehab, he was looking at a lot, and he'd already been through it. And to think that he was going to have to start at day one rather than something that would take into account all that hard work and try to rehabilitate him. Our culture and our rules, our laws are not about rehabilitation. They aren't about helping people stay on track. A lot of it is if you fuck up, you need to be punished. And that sucks. I wish that people could wake up to this en masse and realize that what we need is to help people out rather than punish them. Many times over, it bears out that we're just keeping people from being the people that we want them to be. Uh, I'll throw in another example just out of the blue here. There's a lot of people following the life of Nick Bravo, wanting to call up all of his employers as he gets hired there and maybe call his coworkers and try to get him fired. Those same trolls will complain to him in his comment section on his videos that he doesn't want to work or doesn't have a job at the time. But then when he gets one, they reach out and touch somebody and they try to ruin his life. You know, it's a real push and pull. What do you want? Do you want him to have a job, or do you want him to live in pain so that you can feel good about yourself? Anyways, that aside, um, I've also had a lot of turnover in my field where some people have left the place that I work, some people have left the field altogether, you know, and in ways that I can't talk about, again, because I have to be confidential about the lives of my coworkers or friends that are in the field. But it hurts when you feel like it's another death in your life. You know, there's one thing that when it's like an actual death, you know, where I've experienced a lot of them recently, but when somebody has their farewell party and they're going to a different job, you know, or they just duck out the Irish way they call it. It's it makes it harder to work when you don't have the same camaraderie, right? I have what I call my coffee cult at work. People that buy coffee for each other, the coffee drinkers. I'm not a smoker. Most addiction counselors are not smokers, but we do like coffee, and I'm actually drinking coffee right now. Welcome to your new addiction. This is actually a Fuzzy Taco Shop cup. Uh, I love those guys. I have a whole bunch of different colored cups from them, but I like this one. Well, you know. And there's pumpkin spice in it, by the way, which is the best coffee flavor. Fuzzy's doesn't serve coffee, by the way. I have my own home brew coffee that I put in it. It's hard when coworkers leave and you've invested a lot in your friendships and your camaraderie, and that's been something else that's hit me. among all of these other things, I've had a lot of turnover at my work and in just the field in general of addictions. I know people who are leaving for other professions because of just dissatisfaction with their job or uh, wanting to make more money. And I don't blame them for that. I mean, housing prices everywhere have risen well past the rate of people's pay to the point where, you know, I'm hoping, hoping for a housing price crash again, like 2008. I'm like rubbing my hands, like time to get my credit score shored up, you know, because I'm waiting to snipe something good when the housing market crashes because sure as hell can't afford it at the prices that everything has risen to. You know, I feel like I'm living a good life and that I'm putting food on the table and I have some money saved away and I'm not e-begging like other YouTubers all the time. You know, I leave the door open for stuff, but I have no fantasies of trying to be a successful professional YouTuber anymore. I actually made a whole series about somebody else who has that fantasy and the the thought processes behind it. And I was hoping that it would enlighten a lot of other people that might have had that bug bite them. You know, I was bitten by that bug maybe year two on YouTube, but I have no fantasies about being a YouTube star that I take seriously. Just like I have no expectation that I'm going to win the lottery. You know, I make these videos for the 100 or so of you that that are regularly commenting, not for any shot at that lottery because I'm just very realistic about it. And by my own hard work, I have been able to make a life for myself that, you know, I don't have to worry about that lottery. You know, it's it's a bit of freedom in that I'm going through. That's also a reason why I really respect uh, Mr. Repzion, Daniel, because he's put out that message a couple times that he went to go learn a trade and he's got a job that he can do now that is in demand. It's a service that people need, um, and it's a profession that's in demand. You know, it's you know that the number one thing that kindergarten boys want to be nowadays is a YouTuber. It's it's crazy, you know. And I look down on that, but there are also demographics where the number one job is astronaut, like in China, which is just as rare. You know, the idea that everyone can have that prestigious job that everybody else looks up to, you know, versus just finding a job where you can help people on a more personal level, and rather than having the adoration of thousands or millions, knowing that you gave someone a service that they really needed, you know, and in my case, I can say without really feeling like I tooted my own horn that I have seen how my own uh, help that I've given people has changed their lives forever, you know? And hopefully when the time comes for people to memorialize me, then I'll have a couple people show up and say a few nice things, you know? That's not going to happen for a while, though. I also have one other thing that has been depressing me a lot, and you guys are probably going to roll back your viewing of this channel to this moment, and remember that I said that on August 26th something happened that it changed my life in that one of my friends is no longer in my life, um, because I can't be associated with that person anymore. Um, our lives are just taking different paths completely now, and it's it was a friend that was in my close circle of friends, and there's been a very big hole in my heart about that for a month now, and I can't say much about it now for a completely different reason about confidentiality than what I've discussed, because I really do care about some people in the world, and all I can say is that I know right now that I cannot stop the ripple effect that is going to happen on my life personally and on the internet to all of you who might be watching my channel and be, you know, apprised of the path that I've taken in the last decade here with you guys. Really, when you lose a close friend, sometimes it is akin to a death. You know, it's very much like it. You don't ever get to talk to them anymore, right? They take a lot of the good times that you had, the conversations that you had with them, and all of that uh, investment that you had in their life is now cut off. You know, and so I really feel like along all of the other deaths that I've experienced in my life this summer, this one kind of, it's right in there. It is a death, you know. The person's walking a lot around with a beating heart in their chest, but dead to me, you know, for all intents and purposes. By the way, if you're one of those people who says all intensive purposes, listen to the grammar Nazi here. Intents and purposes. Uh, it's a little pet peeve. Anyways, since I've been depressing you for like an hour now, I'm going to list off a bunch of the things that have been working out for me. I still have a 4.0 in grad school, and I'm learning some great stuff, some of which I've been dumping on my Discord server as I go along when I find interesting things. Um, join my Discord server if you want to see those. Uh, I'm looking forward to political season because just like pumpkin spice season, political season is one of the things that I look forward to, and it happens every 4 years. It's where it's not that I'm not celebrating it all the time, like those people who like to buy Christmas ornaments in January, but when other people start celebrating it around me, it feels good. And come the caucus in February, I will once again become a delegate because uh, it's just something I like to do. And another good thing that is happening in my life that I really look forward to each week is that I got a side job running DUI therapy. I've said this before, but I've been able to showcase my own talent as a therapist in group therapy a lot better than being a crisis style counselor has allowed me to do in my other job. And so I'm really enjoying that. And once I am 1 year of experience doing that type of group under my belt, I will be able to get this training called the Interlock Enhancement Course training, where it's basically the last drug addiction course that I need to have all of them. Like, gotta catch them all, you know? It's the last course that I need to have every class for addiction counseling under my belt. And it has a requirement that you have to run DUI groups for a year before you can take it. Once I get that certificate, though, uh, it opens up a couple of other opportunities for me in that anyone who's a DUI client who has an interlock system installed in their car, which is very common these days, they have to take a special course on how to use it. And uh, when you want to have an agency that does DUI therapy, say you want to hang your hat out on your own, or you want to help another person start their agency, one person in the agency on the staff roster at least has to have that course. So it really does open a lot of opportunities, and I'm on my way to checking that box. Um, it to me is it's just as important as my grad school work, and I'm enjoying the experience. It's given me a strange set of recurring people who I can look forward to seeing. And then, just like in life, you have people who uh, start in a group and then they finish the end of their mandated uh, groups and they graduate out, and you see people come in and out of your life. Just like your friend circle, just like your family. People come in, people leave. And it happens at a little bit faster rate in those groups, you know, but it's predictable because you can see how much they have been uh, given to do, and you have closure because you can plan for closure in that sort of setting. And, people come into your life and leave them and leave it. And it's it's been a lot better for me than things that have been happening in the rest of my life. So those DUI groups, to me, they're like a little treat at the end of my week that I get to run those. And I'm really thankful to the coworker of mine who connected me to the ability to work for that contractor. Uh, Also, I've been networking with a couple of old friends from other agencies, and it's given me a brighter outlook on life. One friend in particular, he just went into private practice and he's making it. He's actually making a go of it, and he almost has a caseload. You know, and just seeing what he's able to bill and how he's able to be in the field as a private practice person, it's helped me. And I've been talking with other successful people, and it helps me feel like there's hope for me to be a success in that when I am talking to these other successful people. And that networking um, was kicked into high gear, unfortunately, by the memorial service that I attended for Noel because we didn't go to his actual funeral. A bunch of us ex coworkers had a service for him in the park, but I talked with people that I hadn't talked with in a long time, and it just, you know, it gave me a renewed sense of hope about, you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel as far as all of these crap paying jobs that I have taken in the past, and the medium paying jobs that I'm stuck in now that don't keep pace with the housing market. You know, it gives me hope that I'll be able to one day pull myself out of that rut in life. Other good things as far as my checkout, I start every session with check in and check out. Any therapy session I run, I ask people at the beginning what self care they did in the previous week, and then at the end, I ask people, what are you going to do for self care the rest of the week? The week forward before I see you again. So, other good things going into my life, just friends. Some of them on the internet, but I'll be going to lunch in about 45 minutes as of this recording, and maybe tonight I might actually go to see a play because I'm going to see my friend Haas from the 2011 era Agent of Doubt videos where I was at the Occupy movement. If you guys remember, Haas was one of the people who signed the permit for Occupy Colorado Springs. I'm gonna go see that guy. He's a really good actor, and I think he's the lead role in a play. And he's got a showing tonight, but I'm having lunch with him at 11. So um, there's him, but there's also all my friends on Discord, all my friends on TikTok, all my friends here on YouTube, uh, and everybody that I have regular talks with, on Skype or Marco Polo or whatever it is. I got a good friend support system, uh, and maybe it's even better now that I've trimmed some fat, as it were. I get to uh, go talk to some people I haven't talked to in a long time, and just you know choose who I'm going to associate with, and try to make that close circle of friends as good as I can. You know, I'm not one of those people who chooses friends solely on what they can do for me. You know, I guess the biggest thing I've been choosing my friends on is loyalty in the past, but I do have a couple friends that I know I'm going to be giving them a lot more than they're giving me, and to me, it's about me being as loyal of a friend as I would want them to be, and I don't know. Lastly, the last good thing I'll say I have in my life is Misty, because we support each other a lot, and I'm really appreciative of everything she's done for me in my life, and how just daily, she's there for me. So everybody give it, oh, because that was worth one. Um, and the dogs. The dogs are cool. And the squirrels. I just fed a squirrel this morning. So, uh, my squirrel's name, by the way, is Cooter. Because the other squirrels are, uh, they're pussies because they won't come eat food out of my hand. But Cooter is a different kind of pussy. He came and he'll or interact with me. He'll grab something from my hand. So I call, instead of a pussy, I call him Cooter. Yeah, maybe I need to work on that. You know, we all have those problematic parts of us that sometimes come out. I just thought about what I just said there. I'm like, God damn. As progressive as I can be, God damn, sometimes I can be problematic. But Cooter, he's cool. He sees me out every time I go to the truck because he's uh, thinking that I might have a cracker or something. You know, and he likes to blink his tail at me like, hey, I'm here, feed me. We even got a little bird feeder for them to drink water so that they don't suck the sap out of our trees and kill our trees as much because they'll do that just to get water if there's no water source. So yeah, got a lot of things to live for and look forward to. And if you don't see me posting a video regularly on this channel, just know that the most likely reason is not depression. The most likely reason is actually I got some schoolwork to do, and I have prioritized over clicks and views or talking to anyone or anything else. I have prioritized maintaining that 4.0. And hopefully, just keeping my priorities straight, I will be able to get through these difficult times and just keep my eyes on the light at the end of the tunnel. Because, yeah, been through a lot of suck. All right, guys. Now I only have like 40 minutes before I got to go to lunch. And maybe afterwards I'm going to get a haircut because I'm approaching Wolverine level again. Got to get a trim. Laters.